Welcome to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Marketing Podcast, the show where we help you establish your author brand, increase the size of your audience, and sell more books. I'm Lindsay Baroker, and I'm here with Jeffrey Poole and Joe Lalo. And we have a good guest for you this week, Elle Thorne. Let me read her bio on Amazon. It's brief, but I like it. Elle spends her time writing stories about hot men, sexy women, and the stuff that happens between them. On occasion, those men and women are aliens, shifters, and demons. This makes them so much hotter. And that's all that was on Amazon. So, Elle, welcome to the show.
Thank you, thank you.
All right. For those who couldn't read between the lines, Elle writes paranormal romance. And why don't you tell us how you got started writing and what drew you to this genre?
You know, it's funny. I thought about this question because I knew it was coming, and as much as you try to prepare for the question of what got you started on writing, it's one of those things that it's just like being asked what got you started breathing. You can't even. I don't know anyone who loves writing who can't live without putting their thoughts, their dreams, their goals, and their characters' dreams and goals into words. I don't know if you can come up with, well, how'd you get started writing? One day I decided to put it down on paper, and a journey later it was published. And then, I mean, just to go into a brief bio, since I know I already made it brief on you, spent a little bit of time as an acquisitions editor for a small pub, and decided that I wanted to do my own thing. And that's what we call indie, right? So that's where that started about a couple years ago, and here I am.
All right. Well, gosh, that must have given you some experience being an editor. Did you see a lot of stuff that maybe made you want to write things differently or better, or I don't know, maybe not as well? I don't know. If you saw some great stuff coming across your desk.
I do, and you know something? It's funny because I read as a reader. I don't read as a writer. I don't look at something and try to critique it. I look at what is it that the person's trying to bring me, or the writer is trying to bring me. And so it's easy to say, well, did you see a lot of bad stuff? No, you see a lot of stuff that might need polishing, but underneath it's someone's gold, it's someone's diamond. And so, and I know I didn't answer your question about what drew me to paranormal romance. I'm sorry. I'll just touch on that really briefly so I don't ignore you. Um, Paranormal romance is the place where you can bring to life things that are not possible. And you can create heroes or heroines who are larger than life. That's my answer.
All right. Well, you feel free to ignore us anytime, if you just don't like our questions. Just talk about whatever you want. It's okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'm curious, since you kind of did have that editing experience, what made you decide to go self-publishing instead of submitting to a publishing house?
I think the Titanic is a prime example of what a publishing house is like. It sees something and cannot react. You and I, or anyone who is indie published, knows that you can turn this on a dime. And that, to me, is the ultimate beauty of what we do. If it's not working, we can fix it, we can flip it, we can turn it upside down, we can delete it, and then move forward. And the publishing houses, they move so slowly, and then it's even slower because you have to go through that chain of command before you can actually get the attention to circumvent something that you already knew was happening maybe months ago.
I can see where that would be true, and it seems like in paranormal romance especially that there's a lot of I don't know, trends like this month it's
Bears,
werebears, is that the thing, and next month it's tigers and
vampires, and witches, and
uh,
yeah, you got it.
okay, well, just for those who are listening, it might not be clear because I think it's kind of confusing. Can you explain the difference between urban fantasy and paranormal romance?
I'm going to break it down as simple as I can. Urban fantasy. It's a fantasy in an urban setting. To me, that's the basic breakdown. Paranormal romance is a romance that has paranormal elements. So what is paranormal? The things that you would not encounter in real life. And for those who might say, well, angels are real, I'm not going to debate that.
All right. Well, it's kind of interesting because Amazon, I think in the Kindle store lumps them together, but then in the paperback store, they're different categories, and So I don't know if they're. I guess with a romance, you have to have like a happily ever after or a happily for now ending, and
Well, it to me that defines a romance. It's not a romance if you die or you're not happy at the end. That doesn't satisfy the romance in a person, I think.
right. And then I think with urban fantasy, there doesn't have to be a romance, but
Mm-mm, there
it seems like
doesn't.
they share a lot of the same elements as vampires and werewolves and.
You know what? They absolutely do. And now I don't want to piss any of the romance writers off who write paranormal, but the urban fantasy writers, wow, just wow. I mean, they thrill me every time I pick up one to read it. I just think, oh, I'm so out of my league. But I enjoy the read so much.
All right, cool. Well, paranormal romance seems to be very popular. If you look at the Kindle store, it's always there's a lot of them in the top 1,000 or so. So I'm kind of thinking it's probably pretty competitive to get into. Did you find that so? Did you find it tough as a new author?
To get into it, no, it's about as easy as pressing publish, right? But to succeed in it, I think it's a little bit more difficult. But having said that, I think some of it can be attributed to luck.
Okay, yeah, it seems kind of like when you look at the Kindle store, for an example, and it's, you have to be in the top 2,000 of the whole Amazon store to even break the top 100 of a genre. It seems like it's very competitive, and how are you going to get noticed? But if you can get noticed, there's a big audience and the potential to do really well, it seems like.
Yes, ma'am. I cannot argue that. There is a great potential to do really well. And the paranormal readers are a tight knit group, and they love to communicate with their authors. And I don't know if contemporary romance is quite the same way, but for us with the paranormal romance, our readers are all up in our business, and we love it. I love it personally.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that about fantasy and science fiction fans in general, that we really want to like go to cons and hang out with our peeps.
Yeah,
It can be hard to find your co-readers out there or people that like the same stuff as you.
agreed. Agreed.
All right, I'm gonna hand you over to the guys to ask some more questions, and then we'll talk about romance or not romance, marketing romance, a little bit later in the show.
All right.
Yep. All right. So my first question I've got is, when writing paranormal romance or anything else, do you go where inspiration takes you, or do you try to focus on things which have been successful in the past, either for you or for others?
Okay, I can't speak for what any other writer would do, but personally for me, I I try to go where I think I need to go. But unfortunately, the organic nature of a book, at least for me, takes over and determines, you're not taking that path. I think the characters, they grow within you as you begin to write, and then the more they grow, the more you realize that maybe you didn't know a character, and that sounds so wacky because I know they are not 3D, but they have their own characteristics, and whether that's a product of the dialogue you've written for them or something that is buried deep within you, it sometimes will take the story off path. Now, having said that, I think it might even be, and this just came to me, it might be that inner editor, that inner developmental editor inside of you that is screaming that you need to not be doing what you're doing because, man, you're going to kill this plot. And it's giving you some twist that just makes it so much richer. So it starts one way, and then be it inspiration, whether it's from within you, within the character, within the story itself, it flips on you sometimes.
Yeah, that's something we've heard a lot of authors talk about, is how, like, as you write, the story starts to tell itself, and it seems like the better authors are the ones who sort of follow where their characters go instead of trying to say, nope, the story goes like this.
You know what?
So,
I agree. I agree with you. Just like if you're managing a business, sometimes you better yield to that employee who is down in the ditch and knows what's going on. It's the same thing with the character. They're right in there, and they might have something, and that might be my subconscious talking and not a character, but whatever it is, you kind of got to listen to it. It's like a lieutenant with a sergeant. The lieutenant better listen to a sergeant.
yeah, and it's because yeah, it's like you can't say, well, that's not what my character would do, because the character just did it. You just wrote that.
That's right. Good point. Good point.
All right, yeah, so that's good to know. Another question I had was, PNR is a genre that many would consider a guilty pleasure, and you actually touched on this a little bit earlier. I was going to ask, how have your experiences been with the community? Are they vocal and enthusiastic, or do you find people keeping to themselves?
Holy hell, they were so vocal, and the questions you get asked, sometimes not even my good friends would ask me some of these questions that will make me blush. And I don't blush easily because obviously when you write PNR, you write heat. So maybe that's why people consider that a guilty pleasure. To me, a guilty pleasure would be erotica.
Mm.
But I would say that there is this line of erotica that runs within PNR, and it's expected. And if you try not to write it, I just don't know if you're going to do as well as you might want to.
Yeah. I have had minor elements that we've spoken a little bit in previous podcasts, but I've had elements like characters in my stories which would sort of mirror a similar character in a paranormal romance. And when somebody picks up my story thinking that they're going to get a paranormal romance and they don't get anything like it, I tend that's a really the angriest emails I get, or when people didn't get what they were expecting from a PNR because I didn't write a PNR.
You know what? I know exactly what you mean. But here's the cool thing. On the flip side of that, Joe, is that you invested them in your story so much that the fact that they couldn't stay with it pissed them off. So now they're going to write to you because you know something, you brought me into this and you're not delivering what I want. So that's kind of really, it's a compliment, although when you get that email, it doesn't feel like one exactly, I know.
Yeah, there's something to that where whether they liked it or they disliked it, if you get an email from someone, at least they were engaged.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I just got one more question, and then we'll be moving on to Jeff. Many of your stories focus on shifters, meaning shapeshifters, like traditional werewolves, or expanding on to new interesting areas. Do you have any sort of a formula to picking an engaging wild side to a character? Because it seems like some creatures would make for a better story, and some creatures might be a little bit more wacky.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to define wacky for me just so I can make sure I don't go off course.
I don't. Let's say I don't know, a seahorse as opposed to a
Oh,
bear.
yeah, see, I can't, yeah, no, I cannot write a seahorse or a sloth or a puffer fish or any of that stuff. To me, the shifter that I bring in has to have, for lack of a better term, some of the majesty of nature.
Okay.
And so tigers bring that in. So I write several types of shifters. To me, the felines, they encompass the qualities that I love, the gracefulness, and sometimes the solitude. They like the solitude, like say the snow leopard would be my favorite, the leopards, that family where they just want to be left alone at times, and I feel that resonates within me. Bears, there are things about bears that I love, but it's not necessarily their physical things because they're very protective, they're fierce, they make great mothers, they're very strong, they're alpha, but they're not as sexy as a tiger sometimes. And gosh darn, my bear readers are going to hate me if they read this or if they listen to this. But anyway, sorry.
No,
Did
yeah,
that
no,
did
that
that
makes
kind of
sense.
answer it?
No, yeah, it answers. It makes sense. Like there are qualities we associate with animals that we also associate with people, and when you're trying to emphasize those, the qualities you're after in a person, you find an animal that brings those out, and then it makes a lot of sense.
Bingo. Yes, sir.
All right, so those are my questions. We're going to hand you off to Jeff now for a few more.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so with regards to PNR, you said you've read a lot of other authors that write the similar genre, right?
I have read, yes, sir. I read
Okay.
a lot.
What would you say are some of the most common mistakes authors make when writing in this particular genre, in your opinion?
Disrespecting the genre / reader.
In what way?
Well, to me, it's disrespectful when you take the story and you add elements that are not true to what the genre expects. Does that make sense?
You mean like, say, for instance, if you're writing about a bear and all of a sudden the bear stands up on hind legs and decides to move around like that for the rest of the story?
No, I don't necessarily mean that because I haven't seen that. So I guess what I would say is when the bear or the individual acts in a way that is untrue to the characteristic nature of that beast.
Oh, I get it. So, for instance, a bear becomes this quiet, timid animal that like
Right.
shies away from confrontation.
A wimpy bear, right? That wouldn't work. Or also another common mistake. I don't know. That's a common mistake you asked in writing. So that would be all I could think of. I can't say if you don't know the genre and you think, well, I'm just going to step in here and I'm going to make a quick buck because this is where it's at. I don't know how long you'd be able to fool people, and unless you develop a passion for it in the midst of all this, and you just can't put it aside, and then it's a different story. But I think with any genre, if you don't bother to learn what the readers flock to and need and crave and get from the story, and you decide I'm just going to do it this way, to me that's a little bit disrespectful. And I get that you want to do it your way, but it's called a genre for a reason. It's not called, renegades. It's not, oh, let's just write whatever and throw it on any shelf. This shelf is going to hold these books because these readers know that this is what these books will deliver. We have to deliver. That's our job.
That makes sense. All right, what aspects of PNR, in your opinion, do you feel make a book stand out? Like strong, relatable characters, engaging setting, maybe adding a dose of humor, having an eye-popping book cover that's showing off a chiseled six-pack. I mean, you never know. I'm just curious what you think.
The book cover is essential, no matter whether it's a chiseled six-pack or whatever. In my genre, that's what it calls for. You look at my books, that's what they are. And when I try to switch it around, even my cover artist will argue with me. Um, but what makes a book stand out? That depends on each book, because here's why I say this. Like I have, I don't know, maybe 20 shifter stories. Each one has a different part that grabs my readers, and it might be the setting because I set this one in Monaco and then one in Rome and then a different one, say, in the Greek islands. But sometimes it's just the good old bears in the mountains somewhere in, say, Wyoming. So it just depends if it'll either be the character or the setting or a combination thereof. And you know something? It is so hard to pick what the reader gravitated to until they give you that feedback.
Yeah, that can make sense. Here's a question I love asking authors. Is there anything you've learned after releasing numerous books that you wish you would have known when you first started writing?
We don't have enough time for that one. Yes. I have learned so much. I've learned be true to the genre. I've learned respect the genre, and don't decide, oh, well, I'm going to write this sci-fi. Oh, let me throw this in there. Let me throw that in there. That does not belong in there. And man, I've learned the hard way, and I'm lucky or blessed that I've been able to get back on my feet after these lessons, or maybe not even fall down sometimes. But you know what? You know it in your heart when you do something like that. If you're a writer who not only writes for a living but also writes for the passion of it, you know what you've done. I mean, and so you just have to fix it in the next one and make it right in the next one. And then every day is a lesson, and if you're lucky, your readers forgive you. And I've been lucky.
Do you think it's actually even possible for you, like right now, after releasing the amount of books that you have, to go back and read your own book, the very first one you wrote, without cringing?
No, no. And I'm thinking about editing and some of my older ones, and I fear that I will want to squash it completely, like erase it. And you know something? Unfortunately, there are, even if they're not a huge number, there are a fan of that. And I'm not going to say which series or which whatever, because I wouldn't want to diminish anyone's self-esteem and thinking that they picked a bad or whatever. But no, I can't. I'm just cringing because I know I have to go through and fix these because they're bugging me inside my soul. But I don't want to do it. I'll pay someone to do it, a lot of money.
Yeah, I'm in that same boat where I've been asked, like, okay, your more recent books are so much better than your early books. You're gonna go back to those and clean them up? I'm like, yeah, man, I need to.
I
But
know.
all
It's
right,
hard to go back, isn't it? It's so hard to go back, Jeff.
it really is. I'm going through. I'm trying to like clean it up. I'm like, I got so much other better things I could be doing right now than messing with this crap. So I'll push that off to the side and come back to it. So
Absolutely. And as much as I hate to say it, it is kind of a timeline of our growth. And it is kind of neat, although it kills us inside to know it's out there, because that maybe perfectionist within us, or the place where we are now, doesn't want to see it. But it would just devastate, I think, some of our readers who might really have become attached to those books and where they were going, and even want us to finish part of the series, even though I'd rather just chuck it.
yeah, I've actually had quite a few people, even leaving in the reviews, say like, "Oh wow, you can see Mr. Poole has gotten so much better than the first book. So he's learned from his past mistakes." And I'm like, I like that's the part I do like. So now that if you go back chronologically, you can see my first. Like, okay, wow, he didn't know what he was doing, but this one he clearly does. So yeah, that's what holds me back from devoting more time and effort. And of course, money too. But
Well, and there's no reason to, because that was yesterday, and looking backwards keeps you from looking at tomorrow forwards. So sometimes you have to say, you know what, I just got to look forward and let that backward be. And maybe that's the point I'm going to come to, good, bad, and ugly.
very true. Okay, well that's it from my questions with this topic. Let's go ahead and head over to back to Lindsay so she can ask you some marketing.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, Al. So what have you tried so far to market your books? And is there anything that's worked really well or anything that's been a waste of time?
Wow. So I'll get to the waste of time one, because that's a quick and easy one to answer. You can't really tell that something's a waste of time until way down the road. For example, you do a box set and you think, that didn't do jack for me, that did nothing. But did it not really? How do you know that it didn't develop some fans in and amongst all the other things that you have out there? So the waste of time part, that's hard to measure. I could definitely tell you that there are some decisions that I've made that maybe killed my momentum in making money at that moment. But again, I don't know what it's going to, what good I'm going to reap in the end of it. So trying to market books, paid ads, of course, and by that I'm talking about the newsletter ads, BookBub, ENT, Bookgorilla, FreeBooksy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those have worked well for me. Another one that's worked really well, and this is something that I don't know how other groups are. I think they're the same way in science fiction maybe, but Facebook groups that have readers in them that read that genre. For example, I'm in a group called the Wolf Pack, and it's run by Michelle Fox, and it has 5,000-6,000 readers in it. And it's a small community of shifter readers and writers, and it's so cool because you interact, and it's that closeness that you get at a con, I think. And of course, with that, there's an author group that's tied into it. And now, having said that, I must mention that it's closed to new authors, so I don't want to get anyone's hopes up there. That's worked out. Let's see. Other marketing, I think a free day here or there, and some of the promos, the cross promos that we do, shifter writers, you find a group that you work well with particularly, and when you run a sale or they run a sale, you cross promote each other in newsletters. Let's see. That would have to be it, I guess. Big list, huh?
No, I've definitely found that there's a lot of things you can do, and then not everything ends up being worth the time or the money that you put into it, for sure.
True.
It looks like you're in KDP Select. Is that something you've done from the beginning, and how has that gone for you?
There are months when it has gone gangbusters, and there are months when I don't know why I do it. Now, I am making a transition to wide. So I guess one could say that ultimately it's not enough of a success for me right now to keep me from being curious about the other markets.
All right, and have you been in it long enough? It looks like you've actually published a lot of books just in the last couple years, so maybe I should ask when you actually got started.
First book came out, April will be 2 years.
All right. So you were in it when it was getting paid for shorter works, the same as for longer works. Did that affect you at all when they changed over to paying by the page?
I don't know. Here's let me just sum it up real quick for you. My first novel that was over 15,000 words, let's say, came out July, the same month as the introduction of KU1. So hard for me to tell. It was in there. I'm in there, and it's like, but I sold so many books. So and then it got dumped into that KU, the Kindle Unlimited thing, whatever the KDP Select, and yes, it did well, and I've done well. But then we had the rollover to the KU2 this last summer, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, it's going to be horrible! It's going to be horrible!" And boom, I have the best 3 months ever. Go figure. But now, having said that, I also released box sets, personal box sets of my own series. So, and I haven't broke the numbers down enough to see, and I should. Shame on me. You just reminded me that I'm just a horrible businesswoman. But anyhow, so 3 awesome months, and then things started to taper off. Then again, we all know fall can be kind of slow, I guess, for some. And so I don't know. I don't know where it went. And as if to just further muddy up my own waters, I was introduced or invited to several box sets, that in multi-author box sets, which of course derailed my own personal releases because they were exclusive. So I had to write something that went exclusive into that. Wow, who would have thought? Exclusively into that box set. So you do that for several box sets, and you're derailing the series that you're writing. And so here's what I'm saying. Like, I write Shifters Forever Worlds, and there's Shifters Forever, the first 6. Then we go to After Dark, Always After Dark, excuse me, which is the next 4 books. And we do Never After Dark, which is the next 4 books. But they're all in the same world. So suddenly I'm doing really well, and then boom, I just bring it to a halt and start writing these other books that are the beginnings of other Shifter series, all in the same world, but not in the same series. Exactly, they're spin-offs that are going into these box sets, which I'm not making the money on. As you know, you split those. And so why do you do that? Well, I did that because I wanted the exposure, and because, let's face it, okay, so you're the kid in the schoolyard that all the popular kids, the awesome athletes are out there, and they're playing their dodgeball, their kickball, and then one day they go, "Hey, you're looking good. Come on over here and join us." You're like, "Who, me?" And you turn around because you know they're not talking to you. Yeah, they are. So that's when the offers for the box sets came in, and it was an opportunity that was golden. Not financially at the moment, but I met and collaborated and worked with so many people and learned so much about the business. Wow, I'm just going on and on, Lindsay. I'm sorry. Am I digressing too much?
No, we like it when the guests talk. They listen to us all the time, the listeners, and they're tired of us. So.
So, did I answer your question, or did I get off track a little bit?
I was actually going to ask you next about box sets. So
Oh, you were? Oh, have I already answered it? What's your question?
No, you make a good point though about like if somebody asked me to be in a box set and they just want a book I've already published, it's like a no-brainer. Sure, it's already perma-free or it's a book one or something, so it's not really much work. But I've been in. I guess my pen name has been in one where I had to write something original for the box set, and that does get in the way of your regular production schedule. So it is something to consider. And like you said, you're not necessarily going to get paid a lot for these box sets. Sometimes if they really take off, it can be decent, but
Yeah,
probably you'd make more releasing it on your own.
I
So,
think I agree with you completely. It's exactly my experience. You would make more, release it on your own. Of course, one of the box sets it made USA Today, so you can add some letters to your name, and if that's something that motivates you as a writer, it's not something that motivates me as a writer personally. Now, I'm not casting any aspersions whatsoever because I think it's awesome, but for me, the money is the motivation. If I'm in it to win it, it's the money that I want to win. It's not the titles, and it's just that I don't know, it just breaks down that simple for me. But I wouldn't change a thing because of the lessons that I learned, the people that I met, and the things that I've now also learned to safeguard against. Because, there's always good and bad in things.
All right, what are you safeguarding against? What did you learn?
I learned that there needs to be complete organization and a game plan going into a box set. And duties must be lined out, they must be spelled out, and expectations, and also the goals. Does every writer here have the same goal or not? Because if your goal is to make money and mine is to make letters or make lists, then we're at cross purposes, because there might be a way to make money without making the letters that you might want. Like, say, if you wanted to go Kindle Unlimited with the pages read. Of course, I know now that they've put a cap on that, so yeah, boo-hoo. I'm so sympathetic. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. No, I know what you mean, because like if you put a box set out at $2.99, you might make a lot more money than if it's 99 cents, but you might be able to sell 10,000 copies, if you've got like 10 authors all promoting it to their lists and get the bestseller status. So it's definitely something to consider.
Absolutely.
Now, have you found with these box sets that, or can you tell if they've actually it seems like when the theme is really tight that you can expose yourself to a lot of new readers that are very specifically, like I saw one of your box sets was just shifters.
Yeah.
So do you think you found, like, have you had people email you and say, hey, I first found you through this box set? Do you think it's helped your sales of your other books?
No one has personally reached out to me and said that they found me through that. I guess readers do say that to people, or maybe they say it in reviews. I'm not big on reading reviews because they're just not meant for me. Reviews are not, they're not written for me to read those. Those are written for other readers to either know to read the book or to avoid it as if, it's on fire or something. But so I can't tell you, but I think it has, because, and the purpose of this is I always look at now that I've learned, when someone says, hey, do you want to be in a box? I'm like, all right, who's in it? Because if it's someone that I've heavily cross-promoted with already, chances are we probably have the same mailing list or something similar. There might not be enough of unless they've done something, unless I've seen them do a push that got them more readers, or they branched out and I see them in a box set with a whole other group that I have never worked with, and I'll say, okay, I need to work with that author again, because we might be able to trade some subscribers there. I hope I'm making sense here.
No, that makes sense. Like we were saying, if you're going to write something new, it's a investment of your time, and you might be making more money just publishing on your own. But as you're saying, if there are some perks, like you're going to get exposed to new readers from other people's fans, then maybe it is worth it in the end.
Absolutely, and they can get and hopefully it's the same thing for them, because hopefully they're approaching it with the same perspective. And you try to find people who are commensurate, for lack of a better term, or in the same circle as you, or the same. When I say that, I mean have enough to bring to the table as you do, and that you have enough to bring to the table for them.
Right. It's good if everybody already has a list of readers, or if they don't, then if they're the person willing to organize it, sometimes that can make up for it, because I don't want to organize anything. So if somebody's really gung-ho.
I am so in agreement with you there. When you find a good organizer, you never want to let go of that person.
All right, I'm curious, you've got different series with different themes. Is there anything, like, do you kind of see what's hot right now in paranormal romance and maybe try to do some of that if it's interesting to you? Or do you just kind of do your own thing and whatever's, exciting you?
I wish I could say that I look at what's hot right now, but I buy my covers a year in advance. So I'm not sure that I could really say that. And I don't think that I'm not sure that people that keep on wanting to turn on a dime and, oh, the sky's falling and this is going to end. No, it's not. Those readers aren't going anywhere. If you can grab them and you can bring them into a series, and then it has a spin-off, and they're invested in the characters, and the characters revisit the books, I don't think you're going to lose them. I don't know if you change something No, I don't think I do. I mean, I look at what's going on and I listen to words and oh, vampire's going to be big next year. Witches are going to be big next year. Well, that's all right because I slowly do start to incorporate them. But by the time I write the books that I'm buying now, it'll be 6 months to a year. So maybe they won't be. But you know what? That's where my passion is, and I'm hoping that's where my fans' passion are.
Yeah, I think there's some topics that are just going to always have readers that like those particular things. It can be tempting to say, "Oh boy, those biker werewolves, man, those are really hot right now." So I got to jump after that. But I think people are always going to. There's always the great thing about self-publishing and being online is you can kind of always reach your audience of people who are really into the things that you're into.
So very true.
So we were curious. You said you purchase your covers a year in advance. Is that just because you need to get them before your cover artist is busy and you need to get them booked, or is that kind of like how you do your production schedule?
It's how I do my schedule. So last year I decided I wanted to write shifters. I was just dying to write some shifters, and I thought, hey, that's cool. The market's good, so I started out with some bears, and then I thought, you know what? What if I had some tigers that became friends with the bears, but the tigers are going to be in Dallas, and they're going to have a nightclub, so they're not going to be all hokey pokey bear, in the mountains, kind of mountain men. They're going to be these more polished, urban, sexy, hot guys, so more fitting like white tigers. So as soon as I came up with that idea, I threw it at the cover artist, and I said, all right, here's the 4 titles, and here we go. Just put the people on there. Here's the 4 titles. And then right on the heels of that, I mean, within the same day, like, all right, you know what? The next spinoff needs to be happening in Europe. And so that's going to have a darker flair, and it's still going to be white tigers because they're going to be the family, the cousins of these other white tigers. And it's going to be have a little bit more mystery. So, boom, okay, here's what I want. And I just give her the breakdown of here's the titles, here's the feel I'm looking for, and make some magic happen. And she does. And then the next one I knew, okay, that one's going to be in Louisiana, and here's what color I want. It's going to have that New Orleans. I don't know. I'm so wacky. The more I listen to myself talking, y'all, I'm like, man, I'm like way too wrapped up in this stuff. So that's that. And then when I was asked to join the box sets, I was like, okay, I need to create a new spinoff because these are already started. So I'm like, ooh, you know what? Polar bears in New York. Russian, mobbed up polar bears. I'm like, hell yeah. Sorry, excuse me, language. So then that's where that went, and I had to order those covers, and then I ordered the next set of covers because I had to take my bears back to the valley because you know what, we just got to go home for a little bit. And there you have it. And now, big secret, I'm ordering the next 4 series, 4 spinoffs, even though I haven't written the last 2 yet. I just know where I'm going. I know what I want to do, and I hope my readers are along for the ride because it's going to be fun and bumpy.
All right, sounds good. And hey, we're all, a little geeky with our passions here, so we we don't judge. I've got a dragon who thinks he's a god, so maybe he actually likes the ladies very much too, so maybe he should star in his own
No
novel. I don't
kidding,
know.
girl. I see. You're just trying to stretch out into. You're reaching for that paranormal there. Are you gonna get it?
Well, I've actually had readers ask me like, is there going to be dragon? Because the dragons can change too. So they're like, is there going to
Absolutely.
be like sexy romance stories? I'm like, no, probably not in this series, but maybe with my pen name, we'll see.
You could so pull that off. I've read you. I mean that in a good way.
All right, good. So I was
Look at
curious.
Jeff.
I was curious looking through your books that you're publishing really often. You seem to kind of like, I guess I would call them novellas. They look like they might be like 20, 40,000 words somewhere in there.
The shifters are between. My personal preference is for the shifters to be between 20 and 25. It forces me to write lean, to stay on point, and allows me to put it at a price point that I can work with, and then box. For those who like boxes, because some of my readers, they're adamant, they're hardcore. We're not going to buy it till the box set comes out. All right, you do what you want to do, and we roll that way.
All right, and do you feel that in that genre that novellas are doing well, or do you think readers prefer novels, or what are your thoughts? Are you able to sell them pretty well?
Yes, ma'am. I'm blessed. I'm lucky. They move very nicely, and and I'm in a good place right now. I don't plan to change what I'm doing because I don't think you can do that to your readers unless you find a way to do it seamlessly, and I'm not sure I could, and I'm not sure I could write it that way. I think I like the way that each one addresses an issue, internal and external for the characters, and brings them together at the end and introduces the next problem or the next person who's going to be visiting us, perhaps, and then we move on to that one, and we stay in that general locale for the 4 to 6 books, and then we move on to the next setting. So I get to explore. I am a little bit ADD, so I'm spastic, and I get to indulge my spastic side by jumping from scene to scene and book, and as long as I keep it, as long as I can write it lean enough and engaging enough to hold a reader as much as it'll hold me, then I'm good.
Nice. And do you find that are you doing different hero and heroine in each novella, or is it kind of a series that follows the same characters along?
No series at all on these. I walked in with a game plan, and for the first time I stuck with it, because my contempt, I did not stick with my game plan. My sci-fi, I did not stick with my game plan, and I paid the price. Now, don't mean I paid the price with the readers, because I was lucky enough to have the following there that some of them love it, and I have other fans that are sci-fi or contempt. What I mean is I'm right with myself. I have to be right with myself in the way that I'm bringing this to the table, and I cannot switch midstream. I don't want to switch midstream. I love it. It's just we get to visit this couple and see what they're about, but it's not the end of it, because in the next book that couple might be the brother, say the brother of this hero might be the brother of the next, might be related to the next hero, so he'll come in the story. We'll see them. They might have a baby or whatever. We'll get an update. We'll see what's going on, but not get entrenched in dragging out a story over 9 parts of one couple.
All right. Well, that's great that if the genre is willing to accept the shorter books, it seems really cool, because then you can publish really often, and that seems to be what you're doing. Any thoughts on, or do you doing pricing like at $2.99? It looked like you kind of had a mix of 99 cents.
Girl, I just know I'm going to do what you hate, which sometimes is ladder up, ratchet that thing up. No, I don't. What I actually do, and this shows maybe my blue-collar roots here, I don't want to rip anyone off. I'm not here to get rich at someone else's expense. Well, obviously I'm not rich anyways, but the point is to deliver a good story at a fair price, but you need to introduce it at a lower price so that someone says, hey, I'll take a risk on you. Why not? $1, free, whatever, at first. Then they can make an informed decision. No one's holding a gun to anyone's head. They could say, okay, you're worth it, you're not worth it, I'm out, goodbye. But I don't also want to play on their heartstrings and hijack them on the 6th spinoff. That's just crappy, and I wouldn't do it. But I'd also keep in mind, if these books are going to be 30,000 versus my 20,000 books, okay, well, we might need a price adjust here. So I try to be fair to everyone else. Same time, I got to put food on this table.
All right, sounds good to me. And my last question is just, are you getting more of your borrows, or are you getting more borrows than purchases, or is it about even? What are your thoughts on KU right now with that?
Greater sales than borrows right now. So definitely seeing a justification for my decision to explore the wider market. I haven't figured out why completely, although I've spent some time studying the market, particularly the Amazon market, and just some of the things I'm seeing there, things cropping up. I think there's a home for me elsewhere for now. And then if that home doesn't look like it's something I like, I might jump back in. But right now, I've got to get out there and just see the rest of the world.
All right, sounds like a plan. And since you have several series going, you could always try it with one series first and see how it goes.
That's exactly what I'm doing. I've started with the first book in the Shifters Forever world, the Shifters Forever book 1, and I'm going to just go through and get them all in wide. And I'm going to give it about a year, because I think it's fair to do that. I know I may impact my income somewhat. we'll see what happens. You know, it's just like any other business. You pay your nickel and you take your chances.
All right, sounds good. And you can always write more series and stick them in
Yeah.
KU if that ends up being the thing that works better. But
Well, they all do 3 months in KU, at least to start with, and I owe that to my original readers because they started there and they have an expectation, and I should deliver to that.
right, I can see where they might get a little irked if, because I know romance readers often read tons and tons, and for them the $10 a month is a really good deal because they can try way more authors and books than they could if they had to pay for everything.
Absolutely, so true.
All right, well, let me hand you to the guys and let them ask some questions on marketing also.
All righty.
All right, so yeah, my first marketing question is: word of mouth is usually the backbone of indie advertising. Do you do anything special to try to foster folks to spread the word?
Shame on me. I do not. You know what? I see these opportunities and other authors do it. They're like, yeah, you can Kindle Fire to randomly selected by anybody who clicks on this and shares it on Facebook or Twitter or whatnot. I have a hard time doing that. You know what? If you liked this book, we're going to do it old school way. You're going to tell someone so they can enjoy it too. That falls on me to engage you as a reader and get you to like this enough to push it on. And you know something? It does work. I mean, I just truly believe in it. My ARC team, yeah, like maybe 3 to 5 people. That's it. And that's 3 to 5, not 35. That's just a handful. And I like the intimacy of that. No expectations, low delivery. That's fine. It's so organic and it's just so cool. And I don't have to bribe anyone to push me. And I love that because I feel bad if I did it. And not that there's anything wrong with that. And you know what? If you're the personality that can do that, you're a better person than I am. I couldn't do that, and I couldn't sell many things. Just don't sell.
Yeah, no, I can totally understand that. When I very rarely just tell people to share or really tell people how to behave to say a social link or anything like that. It's just I'm very informational with my stuff and sort of hope that people like it enough to tell other people. So it's always sort of a pleasant surprise when I find that someone has shared one of my posts.
I was gonna say, doesn't it just fill your love bucket when you know that they're doing this with no incentive. It's just pure love of whatever it is you've created. I don't think there's a greater feeling than that. But I mean, for me, there isn't. Just to know that I bring this out in someone else. Wow, I'm just like a freaking god. I'm a dragon shifter. I'm just gonna turn into one of Lindsay's dragon shifter gods. No, I'm just kidding. I'm really a lot more humble than that. But no, it's inspiring and it's awing. I'm gonna stop right now.
No, it's true though. I was talking to an artist in her chat the other day, and she had heard from someone else in the chat that she was a role model for that person, and then the person eventually like left the chat, and she was talking about, I can't believe it. Like she said that, she's sort of glowing, and I was like, yeah, every single person should at least once in their life have a stranger tell them that they've influenced them in a positive way, because it's the most motivating thing that can possibly happen.
It is, and it's so humbling and it just brings you back to why you do this.
Absolutely. All right, so another question I have is different types of advertising have different policies and requirements regarding the content of the books they'll promote. Have you ever run into any venues that have been snobbish about paranormal romance?
No, not paranormal romance, but the virtue of writing shifters that are novellas, of course you deal with the length. There are advertisers who don't want to pimp a product that is not what they consider a full read. I completely respect that. I don't have a problem. You know what? It's a rule and it's stated and it's not broken, and you know what? I respect that completely. Also, let's see, what else? Sex in shifter books. Some places will not promote that. You know what? I respect that as well. They have a standard, and you know something? I don't want to be in their ad, because chances are their readers would get really pissed off if they open my book. So it's hard for me to feel that there's any snobbery, because they offer a service to a certain person or for a certain product, just the same way that I offer a product that belongs in a certain place. The two should not cross.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Because really, yeah, it's true. If you sort of elbow your way into something that they tell you it wasn't designed for, then you are by definition going to deal with people who've never dealt with your stuff before, and it's unlikely that they're going to greet it with open arms because they chose this venue to get their book promotion for a reason.
That's right. That's right. That is so very true. But you know what? I also have noticed that um, some of the advertisers are far more open to PNR now than I ever noticed before. Some of the bigger ones. It's like suddenly you can get your foot in the door, not once, but 3 times in 6 months, and you're going, what? Since when? Well, you know something? That's because they have looked and analyzed their market, and it's not that they're saying, oh, you know, well, we love it. No, they're saying our customers want it, we're going to deliver it, and you've got that product. Just like if it was science fiction, I know that BookBub, sometimes the science fiction thing, maybe science fiction romance, and I think they have a special target. They've seen something that what their readers want, and I think they're delivering it. And damned well, I would probably have to say.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's another thing that's worth pointing out is they'll come to you eventually. They'll open their doors if they discover they can make money because they're in it to make money too.
That's right. Nothing's personal, and that's the thing that you know something. And if I could tell any writer, any artist of any sort, the first thing you better do is you better put your feelings, check them at the door, because they're in business, we're in business, and boo-hoo if your feelings get hurt because someone doesn't want your product. There's a good reason they don't want your product, and it's okay to not be wanted because you know something, your product will be wanted elsewhere unless it's really not that good, in which case, hey, you just go on and work on it some more, and there is no shame. At least you tried. There are so many people that never pick up a typewriter, or, well, we don't do typewriters anymore, but never open up a laptop to write, and you have written, and that right there speaks for something. So.
Very, very true. All right, so one more question for me is, we're strong. Well, you actually talked about this a little bit, so probably it's going to be a short answer, but we're strong proponents of writing series, and it's been pointed out you've got a couple of different series. We've spoken to romance authors in the past about how writing a romance series can be difficult because it's hard to continue with the same characters. What defines your series?
Wow. My experience, the opposite of that. Completely the opposite. But that's because the characters that I bring in from past books already have their happy ever afters. And now they are side characters. They're not the main characters, but it's like, let me think of something. Soap operas. People keep watching those things. And today's story might center on this character, but it'll bring in these other guys who tomorrow will have their own drama. And then the next day, it'll be another couple that has a different drama. Now, it's not exactly the same as what we're doing, but it kind of is. It's just a soap opera that plays out with a different couple each time. But you bring these people in that everyone likes, and you know what? Who knows when and why and how the readers pick? They have gravitated, my readers, to a widow woman. I mean, come on. My original character was a widow woman. Granted, she's curvy and she's attractive. Of course, she's immortal, so she's going to be forever curvy and attractive and beautiful. But they connected with her. And so I knew that by book 6, that bare-chested man on there better be the one that she hooks up with, because otherwise they're going to kill me. So book 6 became her book, and oh my gosh, it just solidified the ending to that series in such a way that just propelled them into the next spinoff. And now every time she comes back, all I hear about from them is how glad they are to see her. It's kind of cool because it's like, it puts a smile on my face. I don't know if you can hear a smile on my face, but man, it just puts a smile on my face. And I get my feedback not from emails, but so I have a very closed Facebook group with, I think it's around 800 people, that is not open to anyone other than people who get my newsletter and are fans. And there's no promo done by any other authors, because all that's originally was the place where I stored the pictures that give me inspiration. And then my readers have come in, and so I put each one in an album with the book cover, and so they get to see the place where so-and-so lived, the place where so-and-so grew up. And grew up, and it just becomes so. Anyway, in that group right there, that's where I get my feedback. That's where I get the heartbeat that just propels me forward every time that's where, when they are happy with me, they let me know right there.
That's really neat, and it's interesting. So, like, I write epic fantasy, and epic fantasy, a series is about length, not necessarily in size, but I mean like it continues. It's a thread. And it sounds to me like with romance, it's more about width. It gets wider and broader and spreads.
I think so. I think so.
Interesting. So it just grows in a different direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so cool the way that wow, well, um, it's so cool though to talk to someone who writes in a different genre, because so I'm very short-sighted. I might know a little bit about what I write about and how that works, but I don't know anything about yours. So if you were to say and ask me a question about that, I'd have to throw my hands up, because clueless, completely clueless, and I wouldn't even presume to tell anyone anything about epic fantasy or even urban fantasy or even most fantasy. I mean, except for whatever is related to the stuff that I write about, and some of it I'm still learning, not necessarily with shifters, because I think I've kind of got that down a little pretty decently, but with some of the other genres I'm still learning. So it's so cool to me. I wish I'd have shut up some so I could listen to you and Jeff and Lindsay talk more, because just love listening to y'all. But anyway, that's enough. Sorry.
That's no problem.
Fangirl moment.
That's all my questions. So we're gonna hand you off to Jeff for just the last few.
Alrighty.
All
Be nice,
right.
Jeff. Be nice.
Well, me, of course, always. If I'm going to pick on somebody, I'll pick on Lindsay or Joe there, because
That's
like with regards to the Lindsay, I'm going to look at that back shelf. What is that on that shelf up there? But
I just want to hear her dogs lapping some more water. I just love that. I have 3 dogs, so what am I talking about?
yeah, I just had one that came in here and is like, okay, you've been on the computer long enough. Let's go play. I'm like, good, just a moment, just a little bit longer. But okay, social media. Are you
Yes, sir.
for or against?
I'm for it in the sense that Facebook, especially the group that I have, allows me that one-on-one interaction with my readers, and Facebook in general allows that. I hate promoting on social media. I do it, and reluctantly, because it's expected of me. I just downright hate it. So the day that you start seeing Elle Thorne promoting hard, you better know I have hired someone to do it, because I hate it. It just goes against my grain. It just feels wrong. But so my favorite, of course, Facebook, because it allows that interpersonal stuff. My worst one, well, I only do Facebook and Twitter. So then by default, Twitter, you are the nasty one. Poor Twitter. Plus, I don't understand Twitter. I just don't get it. I don't get it at all. I mean, like,
Yeah,
whatever.
Some people can make it work for them. I've never even bothered to try it because it's like, you know what, it's just not for me. So
Yeah, totally
okay,
not.
mailing list. Do you use one?
Absolutely.
What have you found has been the most effective way to increase the mailing list?
Write a damned good book. And then another one, and then another one. No, I'm sorry. I'm not being a smartass.
Well, I say you're
Actually,
in good company. That's what we all are.
to me, having it in the back of your book as an option for readers to know that this is how they can find out about your specials and your next release, is the best and the most organic way to do it. That is not the only way I've done it. I've also done, especially the last 2-3 months, some of these awesome cross promo where you get together with other authors and you offer a gift, and then people have to sign up for whatever. I guess I don't know how it works, because I'm always a participant, so I'm never the organizers. But somehow they do a raffle or they do something, and people got to sign up. Now, I expected after having done that people would be dropping off my list like flies, and that my open rate would suck. And I'm shocked that it hasn't, which means that the people who are organizing it are targeting really well. They're not, the people that are applying and signing up are not people who are just in it to win it, in terms of like whatever it is, a Kindle Fire or a gift card. They're engaged in the genre for the most part. So
which is
that's
smart.
that's kind of cool. And so the open rate, like if it's been 70%, I'm like, shoot, that's rocking it, as far as I'm concerned. Um, and if they're clicking really high, then I know it's. But ultimately, my favorite way is to just have them want to sign up because they want to know when the next book comes out.
Yep, that's the way I do it. I put like a quick little brief reminder link in the back matter of the books, and I've got an opening blurb right on the front page of the website that says, "Hey, do you want to make sure you don't miss a new book release? Enter your sign up for the mailing list, that sort of thing." So it
And let
works
me
out
ask
well.
you, Jeff, let me ask you, do you have one of those things that forces, that pops up to sign up or not? I've never tried that, so I don't know how
my
that.
w- my WordPress theme will allow me to do that, but I hate pop-ups. The last thing I'm going to do is put one on my own website, so I'll just leave it in the top right corner of my WordPress theme. It says, "Hey, I've got a dedicated page for it. You can learn a little bit more about it." But there's a quick little sign up right on the top right corner of my webpage. It says, "If you'd like to sign up, enter here, and you're good to go." So that's about as annoying as you're going to get from me.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way, a little bit laid back on that. I'm not, I don't judge anyone who opts to do it with a pop-up, and I know it yields awesome results. And you know what? It's probably a good thing because some people don't even realize that mailing lists exist.
Mm.
But I still, something about me, I'm just fighting that tooth and nail. I'm just fighting doing that.
Okay, my last question for you is actually a little bit more of a generic question. Is if a first-time indie author were to approach you and mention to you that you've inspired them to try their hand at paranormal romance writing, and they're looking for startup advice, what would you answer?
Listen to y'all's podcast. Would that be like the winning answer? No, I'm just
Good for you. All right,
actually,
excellent answer.
yay! Actually, yes, that would be one of my answers. Here's what I would tell them, and I have told this to several of my friends who are writers who have been traditional and then contemplated the indie road. And what I have told them is I've sent them to several websites to go to. So there are several podcasts and forums that you can read, and K-boards, of course. I think everybody pretty much knows about that one. Of course, Aaron now has the Indie Pub Club. Um, there's y'all's podcast. There's several on there, and so I have like a list that I would say to them. Okay, I would start here, and I would research the market. So learn the market, study the bestseller list. Look at what the book covers look like, the top ones. Especially look at the ones that are published indie, because I'm not always sure that the traditional publishers have their finger on the pulse of what a cover should look like, because they don't have to. They don't have to do what we do. They've got a machine behind them. So that's really what I tell them. Is I tell them to study, and I don't hand them every single answer, although I've made myself available. I need them to work for it a little bit, just like we all work for it, because you appreciate something a lot more when you got to work for it.
Very, very true. Very, very true. All right, let me hand you back over to Lindsay, or go through the closing of this and see if we can get you off to go play with the dogs.
Way more interesting than talking to us, playing with puppies. All right, Jeff kind of just asked something like this, but I was just wondering if you have any kind of closing advice for maybe somebody that's thinking of just getting into paranormal romance today.
Yeah, and this also, I should have added it onto Jeff's. I think the answer would be it's not a zero-sum game. You know what? There are more than enough readers. You can work together, and I have found that if we all work together, and when I say all, it's a very, I'm going to say some all, because when you work together and you keep your readers tight, and when they're done reading my book, well, Lindsay, I'm going to send them your way. I want them to read yours and Jeff's and Joe's, and we keep readers in a nice tight circle. And that sounds horrible because it sounds like I'm corralling them or something like that. But if we can keep our readers close to us, I think it does us a lot of good. So I would say work with the other authors and work together and help one another out, because it's not me against you. It's you and I against the big five. Isn't that horrible? I'm so horrible. I'm
We
so
won't be
ruthless.
getting any sponsorships on the show from Random
I'm
Penguin or
sorry.
anybody. No, but that's very true, and it's true that you should work together with other authors, because no matter how many books you publish, they can read faster than you can write. I had somebody email me today and say they've read all my books and all my pen name books, and do I have any other pen names that I haven't disclosed? It's like, I've got like 30 novels. You already read all those, and you want more? They're always looking for new authors, and I think with the romance readers especially, they're voracious and they just
Gosh,
read like
they
a
are.
book a day.
They really do. Well, I mean, I know I do the same thing, and I tear through books, and I just love it. It's an awesome escape, so I can totally relate to them. And there's no reason not to work together, and that is the hardest lesson to learn because you spend all this time growing up. You're competitive. You're in sports. You got to be number one. You got to be number one, and then you turn around, and here I'm coming. I'm saying, you know what? We should work together. Within reason. I mean, we should all work together as much as we can. I'm not going to slit my throat for you, but let's work together.
Yeah, Jeff over in the comments said he likes to include a list of his favorite authors in the back matter of his books. And what you should do is make those Amazon affiliate links so that you get money if they go buy them.
Can you do that in the back of your books?
I'm not sure if you're supposed to. I have, and they haven't called me out on it yet. I think you're only supposed to put them on your website, but
Yeah, see, I'm a chicken.
Yeah, in my case, I haven't actually put the actual links. I just put like, hey, if you like reading about this sort of stuff, then I'd encourage you to check out so and their book is this, and so and their book is this, and not actual links. Just if you go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble or something, pull up or do a search for that book or that author, you'll find them easily.
Jeff, that's a great idea, and it's mirroring exactly what the big houses have been doing for so long, and it's keeping your readership tight. And if we could do that, and I'm not like proposing some sort of collaboration where we have like a union of indies and whatever, but I just think we have to, like I said, it's not us against each other. We've just got to bring each other along.
Well, I always notice too that I think it interesting that if I ever go to any of my books and I look at those also bought, the people that bought your book also bought these other books here, I can usually find most of them somewhere in that list. So people are getting to the end and I can while I'm waiting for Mr. Slowpoke to release his next book, I can check out some of these other ones here. So to me, at least in my mind's eye, it's working.
It is, and you know what? It also is it's a very high compliment to you because it means they trust you and they trust what you're recommending. And man, is that what an endorsement from your own readers that is? That hey, you know what? I trust Jeffrey Poole because he knows what he's talking about.
Damn straight.
Exactly.
Darn it, sorry.
we're going to have to put the explicit thing on this episode.
Oh,
Boy.
sorry.
No, it's all right. No, it's been great talking to you, Elle. And so where can people find you online? And is there like any particular one of your books that you'd like me to direct people? I'll put it in the show notes, or they can just go look you up on Amazon, or
ElleThorne.com, and it's ELLETHORNE.com. And Protection, the first book, is now forever free, at least until I make Amazon mad.
All right, I'm going to send them there in the show notes. So this is episode 66, if anybody wants to pop by and have links to your books and your site. And gosh, it's been great talking to you. And I guess that's all I have to say. There's no dogs in the background doing anything weird.
I
so
know.
It seems a little, it's quiet tonight.
I feel so left out. It's like the puppies don't love me. You know what, guys? Thank y'all so much for having me on, and thank you for making me feel comfortable because I was just sweating bullets.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you coming in and sharing all your info with us.
Awesome. The puppy.
Jeff disappears, so there we go. Put that corgi picture up for YouTube.
I have Shelties.
Aw. Mine are too big to pick up.
Hi.
Thank you so much, guys. Look at that pretty one.
All right, and on that note, I think we will close out
Booster
for the night.
So long, everybody.
All right, take it easy.
Have a great